Canadians after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government. And look at all the players in this drama. They're taking care of themselves, fighting for their own personal self-interest while they embarrass the country, tank our dollar, unleash crime and chaos in our community, threaten our trade relationship with our biggest partner. Let's go through these players. Justin Trudeau, who egomaniacally holds on to power even though 80% of Canadians want to fire him. Then there's Chrystia Freeland, who is just fine with doubling the debt, doubling housing costs, doubling the number of people going to food banks, quadrupling the carbon tax, breaking the immigration system, but then suddenly had a change of heart the second she realized she was getting a demotion. So it was really all about her. A demotion that would see her replaced with carbon tax Carney, who had committed to the Prime Minister that he would take the job of Finance Minister after he, as the economic advisor after all, helped write this fall economic update with a $62 billion deficit included in it. And then you have Jagmeet Singh, who after he duped you all and claimed he'd ripped up his deal with Trudeau, voted 8 times to keep Trudeau in office over the last session of Parliament. And including voting against a non-confidence motion that was made up of his own words 11 days ago. If he had voted for his own words, we would be a third of the way into an election campaign right now. But he suddenly had an epiphany and says that he can no longer support the costly chaos that he has enabled as part of the NDP Liberal coalition. This is quite the drama with all these personalities that you're all breathlessly covering, but I'm interested in the dramas of other people, real people, the people who have seen their housing costs doubled, rising faster than any other G7 country, the 2 million people lined up at food banks, which is also double, the 50% increase, people who are part of the 50% more crime victims, or the 116% more gun crime victims since Trudeau took office, or the millions that are unemployed as our economy collapses, or the seniors who will struggle to put food on the table after our dollar tanked in the middle of all this chaotic clown show on Monday, now below 70 cents a litre for the first time in almost 2 decades. I worry about the workers whose wages are stagnant while American workers boom because our investment per worker has collapsed by 23%. I worry about the single moms who are struggling to pay for the massive increase in food prices that have gone up 37% faster in Canada than in the United States, something that coincided with the NDP Liberal carbon tax on farmers and truckers. I worry about the 28% of Canadians who said they're considering moving to another country because life has become so hellish after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government. I worry about the children who will inherit the $1.2 trillion debt. More debt was added in the last 9 years of this NDP Liberal government than in all prior governments combined. I worry about the families who've lost or among those who've lost people to drug overdoses. Now 47,000 Canadians have died, more than died in the Second World War after the NDP Liberals liberalized hard drugs and allowed our border to fly open. I worry about the people who've lost hope in this country. They are the ones we should be focused on. Instead, we're focusing on the chaotic clown show that is costing Canadians today. This cannot go on. With a US president coming in threatening tariffs early next year, we cannot have a chaotic clown show running our government into the ground. What is clear is that Justin Trudeau does not have the confidence of Parliament. Since the last confidence votes happened, there have been 3 major developments. 1, the leader of the Bloc says he's changed his mind. He no longer has confidence in the Prime Minister. 2, just today, Jagmeet Singh claimed that he no longer has confidence in the Prime Minister, albeit he intends to wait until he gets his pension, until he votes accordingly. But still, he says he's lost confidence. And then there are 18 Liberal MPs, including the former Deputy Prime Minister, who've all lost confidence in the Prime Minister. Add them all up and you have 70% of parliamentarians who do not have confidence in the Prime Minister. and in the middle of a trade, border, crime, and cost of living emergency. This cannot go on. And that is why, in just a few moments, I will be writing the Governor General, asking her to urgently reconvene Parliament and require a non-confidence vote so the Prime Minister can judge whether he stays in power, continuing to ruin our country, or whether we get an axe the tax election to allow Canadians to take back control of their lives and their country. With a Prime Minister who can take back control of our borders, our immigration, our spending, our cost of living, who will get rid of the GST on new homes and axe the carbon tax to bring down the cost of living, to show a strong, smart presentation to the incoming president with a new Prime Minister that has the brains and backbone to put Canada first. Thank you.
Comment vous allez faire pour convaincre le gouvernement? Il n'y a rien qui l'oblige à vous écouter. Comment vous allez faire pour la convaincre qu'elle doit rappeler le Parlement?
Elle a une responsabilité de rappeler le Parlement parce que le Premier ministre a perdu la confiance, en plus d'avoir perdu le contrôle. Il a perdu le contrôle des frontières, de l'immigration, des dépenses, de la coût de la vie, et il a perdu le contrôle de son parti. Je peux montrer avec des reportages publics qu'il n'a même pas la confiance de son propre parti, avec, on dit, 60 députés qui n'ont pas confiance en lui. Donc, c'est impossible qu'il gouverne. Il nous faut un vote à la Chambre des communes avant la fin de l'année pour permettre le déclenchement d'une élection dans laquelle les Canadiens vont pouvoir reprendre le contrôle de leur vie et leur pays.
Mr. Poilivere, Brian Mulroney met with Ronald Reagan several months before becoming Prime Minister in 1984, and you have a direct line to the Vice President-elect through a member of your caucus. Why not reach out to the Trump administration before the next election to tell them to stop the devastating 25% tariff?
Well, I've already told them that they should stop tariffs from coming ahead on Canada. But I'm not the Prime Minister, and that's precisely why we need an axe the tax election. Because right now, it looks like a chaotic clown show that's costing Canadians. Right now, the incoming president, who's at his strongest moment, sees nothing but weakness from the NDP Liberal government. He has no idea who's in charge over here. He sees premiers saying one thing, other premiers saying other things, the Prime Minister hiding under his desk. We're still astonished that it's now been weeks since the U.S. president said he would maybe jokingly that Canada would be the 51st state. It's incredible the Prime Minister of Canada has not responded to that, which just is an illustration of the absolute, total, pathetic weakness of Justin Trudeau and his entire chaotic government. The only way for me to have the moral authority to get a deal with incoming President Trump is to have the strength that comes from winning election and having a 4-year mandate so that I face him with a position of strength.
You said this week in a radio interview that prorogation in this scenario would be against the rules. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's the likely scenario? And if so, how would that compare to what Stephen Harper did in 2008 when he was facing a non-confidence vote and prorogued Parliament, which was quite controversial at the time?
Well, the difference is that in the Harper era, he prorogued to stop an undemocratic coalition from taking over against the will of the people. In this case, a prorogation would be to preserve an undemocratic coalition that has lost the confidence of both the House and of Canadians. If Jagmeet Singh this time is telling the truth, which remains to be seen, then he will join with me and write the Governor General. So in fact, I'm giving my letter not only to the Governor General, but I'm giving it to the leaders of the NDP and Bloc, and I'm encouraging them to write the Governor General as well, if they're serious about a non-confidence vote, to recall Parliament. I'll answer your questions. To recall Parliament and vote on whether we call a carbon tax election. Now, Mr. Singh, you know, he right now, you've all once again been duped and reported without any criticism of what he's done. He's talking about holding a non-confidence vote in March. So we're going to have months and months and months of this total chaos if Jagmeet Singh gets his way. And it conveniently will get him his pension. So the whole 41 million Canadians are being held hostage by the pension of one man. So I'm asking Mr. Singh to put patriotism ahead of pension, sign a letter to the Governor General, confirming in writing what he said in front of the cameras, that is, that he no longer has got confidence in this Prime Minister and that he is ready to go to an axe the tax election.
Is it possible to go to an election before Inauguration Day, or would you like to see it? How can you just like lay
The
out
sooner
how
the
you
better.
will
I
see
mean,
it?
it's irresponsible for us not to go to an election. The absolute mayhem,
Inauguration Day?
if I could answer your question, every minute that this chaotic clown show goes on is irresponsible for Canada. The only way to put Canada first is to immediately elect a new Prime Minister who has the strength and smarts, the brains and backbone to put Canada first.
Last question.
Comfortable with the democratic precedent of having the Governor General not only bring the House back, but set the agenda for that House of Commons. Would you tolerate that as Prime Minister in the future?
Well, I wouldn't tolerate anything that's going on right now. I think it's a total mayhem. I've never seen anything like it. It's hallucinogenic to imagine that the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister would resign the day she was supposed to introduce her fall budget. A budget that, by the way, we forget, is 55% bigger deficit than they promised, $62 billion in new inflation. And the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of 60 of his own MPs, and somehow he's clinging to power. We have a guy here who has lost control of everything, and yet he clings to power. This cannot go on. So what I'm proposing is the most democratic thing that can happen. Let's have a vote in the House to let Canadians have a vote at the ballot box to elect a new common sense government that will put Canada first. Thank you very much.